6:39, welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News. As you know, we have been tracking the candidates, getting answers to the questions that you've told us matter most to you. And we continue that in the 5-question series with Gus Rantz, who's running in the 3rd Congressional District in the seat that will be vacated by Dr. Charles Bustani. Good morning.
How y'all doing?
Good to have you in studio here with us, and really looking forward. I think, what are we now, 22 days away? Yesterday was 23, right?
Yeah, and then wasn't it just like 2 months away, like yesterday?
Exactly.
It's 1 week till early voting.
I know, right?
So it's really just 1 week away, because people vote early. And
well, we're going to be out there pounding the pavement, but trust me, we're ready for the election to be here as well. Just my family's ready.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's been fun, but I tell you, I've got to meet a ton of great people out there on the road. Got to hear what's great about this country, and especially Southwest Louisiana, is there's a million ways to make a living. Right? And we got people that are hurting as well. And so we need to pull together, work together, and make a better lives for our neighbors and our family.
Really good outlook. Okay, so let's start with the 5 questions. How would you do this job differently than your competitors should you win this race? What sets you apart overall?
Well, I think one of the first things is you have to do the job, right? We're going up there to do a job. United States representative is to represent 750,000 people in this district. Really no one else. That's who elects you every 2 years. And I think we forget that. And look, that's easy for me to take shots. I realize that. But the reality is I've been incredibly blessed to have an incredible wife, probably better than I deserve sometimes. Three awesome children, a nice business here that's going through trials and tribulations like everybody else's, but it's going to exist. We're going to have a nice business. I've got about 1,900 amazing employees that I have to care for. So worst case scenario, I go up there, I do a job for 2, 4, 6 years, and people say, thank you, Gus, but we don't want you to represent us anymore. I get to come back to an awesome life right here in Lafayette, Louisiana. And I think that's what allows me to have the conviction to go up there and do the job correctly. Because I want the job.
That really does make a big difference if you really are interested in it and you want it and you want to do it. All right, so you were alluding to that about, your own business, and we were talking just before we went on the air just about the difficulties that we have in the oil industry right now. And so one of the big questions of the 5 that we have for folks we're talking to is, how would you be able to work to help out our industry? What role do you think you could play in helping folks out? I mean, obviously you can't make oil, $70 a barrel, but what do you think are some things you could do?
That's a great question. I get that obviously all the time, being out there talking with people. And what's plaguing the oil and gas industry is a couple of things. But first and foremost, for 30 years, we've had politicians come through this area, especially this area, and tell us how much they love oil and gas, right? Everybody's pro oil and gas. The Democrats pro, Republicans are pro. What have you done? What have you done to protect this industry? What have you done to protect our country, quite frankly? And the answer is not a whole lot. We've allowed this last president to just go off the rails when it comes to foreign policy, and really unchecked by your United States Congress, which is sad. But the other part of it is we've enabled our enemies to dictate the price of oil. Now, I'm not saying anything we don't know, but the reality is we don't control our own destiny in oil and gas. And that comes because of the restrictions that we put on our own people, because of the rules and regulations. You can talk to anybody in banking, education, unfortunately, these days, healthcare. The list goes on and on. Everything that the government touches, no matter how well-meaning it may be, and I'm using air quotes when I say well-meaning, the reality is it strangles the life out of hardworking Americans and American businesses. Because the government doesn't have some expertise in these industries, yet they keep feeling the need to make more and more rules and regulations. I can speak from experience. 12 years ago when we started our business, we took over a failing hospital. And I'd love to tell you I was brilliant, but the reality is we worked really, really hard. We made some mistakes. We had a tremendous team, and we saved it in spite of us. And then we got another one. And that's how we built our business, doing turnaround hospitals. And now I operate in 8 states, almost 20 hospitals. But the reality is today where we are and where we were just 12 years ago, I don't know that we could do it again. I don't know that we could afford the attorney's fees to do it again, just to be in compliance with every organization that wants to regulate us. And that's the way the oil and gas industry as well. There's no plan. There's no grand plan. It's just a patchwork. It's a maze. And that's why I'm running, is because we have got to get out of the people's businesses. You know better than me how to run your company. I'm not going to pretend to know it better. I just want to be at the margins. Right? Use the analogy of a referee. Right? The referee needs to call the game, and it's better when you don't see him and you don't hear from him. When the referee's walking up and down the field with that ball, everybody's pissed at the referee.
We're joined in studio by candidate for the 3rd Congressional District, Gus Rantz. Gus, What does your first month in office look like? What is your first order of business if you end up in Washington?
Got to find the bathroom. That's the first thing you got to do. No, the reality is my biggest, I guess one of the seminal points for me is our national debt, which is $19.5 trillion and climbing, almost $20 trillion. And that doesn't mean anything in this day and age. So let me put that in perspective. Imagine, if you will, and I tell this to people all the time, imagine if you had a $60,000 credit card debt. Every person in this studio, every person in this state, how you can't buy a house, you can't buy a car, you can't buy a washing machine with that kind of debt burden. But that's what we saddle as soon as you're born. Bam, that's what you're given. We've got to get that under control if we want to protect our country, we want to protect our borders, our national security, and just as importantly, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, whatever program you may love, we can't afford it. We can't prioritize because we can't afford it. And the reality is, when I did turnarounds, right? You go in there and they're broke. They're too broke to be bankrupt. In fact, a lot of them. You've got to prioritize. You've got to make a budget. And it doesn't mean you don't change. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes, but you have to have a plan and a goal. Right now, we don't do that. We just a patchwork. It's whatever the budget office says, which I don't know why the budget office is the end all be all. They've never been right about anything. But the budget office gets to dictate everything that we do in this country. We've got to take it back and have conviction, and we've got to be responsible with the dollar. So I think that's the number one goal that I'm going to be focusing on, is being responsible with our dollars. I've got 3 children under 10. I would love to see them grow up in the great country that I was blessed to grow up in. Okay,
we live in a state that has its own issues with race. How do you think race will play a role in how you execute this office?
I mean, the truth is, race shouldn't play much of a role in it. I'll acknowledge that we have some race issues. I refuse to say it's as out of hand and outlandish as some of those in the BLM movement, which I really think is a hate group these days that's been hijacked. The reality is, if you want to change somebody's heart, you want to change somebody's mind, you don't beat them over the head with a new law. That's a failed policy going back thousands of years. That's not just in America. You've got to change it. Starts at home. It starts with the family unit. And I really believe one of the major problems in this country is not black or white, it's not rich or poor. It's the fact that we don't take care of each other. We don't take care of ourselves. We've lost our moral compass, quite frankly, because we got rid of it. We kicked it away. I'm unique in that we talk about the American dream all the time. And I remind people, that's not about being a Kardashian, right? The American dream is about it's about self-determination. It's about the ability to fall down, get back up, and go again. I was born in government subsidized housing, okay, and my parents basically got off to a rocky start, as my grandfather would affectionately refer to it, 2 lost balls in the high weeds. But unlike so many people in this country, I realized how blessed I was to have 2 loving parents who had their faith, who pounded the value of education into us, and who worked their tails off to make sure that we had opportunities and a better life. I realize I'm blessed in that respect, and I think there is a role of government to help people who fall. It's not to carry them, right? It's not for a lifetime of addiction to government, and that corporate addiction is just as pervasive. I'm not saying it's one way or the other. We've got to get rid of the cycle of addiction, because that doesn't help you, me, our neighbors, and our country.
Wrapping up with Gus Rantz. Gus, what is the biggest misconception about you?
The first thing people tell me is, man, you're a lot taller in person.
My first thought the first time we ever met.
Yeah, you are tall.
I need a better photographer, apparently. I'm sorry, say the question again.
What's the biggest misconception, misperception?
The biggest misperception? I don't know. I get the height thing all the time. I'm 6'5". I'm 290 pounds. I could definitely play for LSU these days. I think, unfortunately, one of the biggest things is I'm a little bit passionate. Although I'll tell you what, I've been in a lot of negotiations with people I didn't like and people I did like, and you have to keep your head. But I wear it on my sleeve a little bit. Some of the career politicians, some of the better politicians in this race probably are better at telling you what you want to hear. My people get on to me for being a little too honest, but I said that's also why I'm running, right? Yeah. I mean, what would be the point? So I think that's part of it.
All right. Candidate for the 3rd Congressional District. We appreciate your time, Gus Rantz. Thanks for coming by. We look forward 22 days.
It's hard to
believe.
Actual
Election day early voting starting next week.
A week from today.
6:48 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL.